Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show. I'm Goose, and I'm alive. I had a little car problem earlier today. If you saw anything on my YouTube post or my Instagram or anything, my back tire kind of shredded, but I'm fine. We're good. Had a little bit of extra time taking on my day. I'm not as prepared for this stream as I'd like to be, but it's okay. We'll get through it. In fact, what I think this is going to mean is that we are going to kind of talk more about this as more the main topic today, which is about powers. We're talking about underrated powers. I would like to kind of move that more into just a conversation with you all about powers and what powers you think are underrated, or even maybe certain combinations of powers or powers plus certain modifiers that you think are underrated. People don't take them as often. You think they're really cool, but you think like, hey, you should be taking these. These are really cool. I did post a Reddit post over on the Reddit on the Savage World subreddit about this topic, about which kind of powers people thought were underrated, and so we're going to talk about some of the answers. I think some of them are really good. Some people brought up some really good combinations of things. Sometimes even certain powers with certain edges are really strong, and we should look at those and see what kind of things we can do. So yes, but before we dive into that, we are going to dive into some other things, and those other things are going to start with the newsletter. So let's go ahead and share the newsletter over here, and I'm going to make this myself a little bit bigger. There we go. First big piece of news from the newsletter is Deadlands, the Abominable Northwest, is coming to Kickstarter. This is going to Kickstarter on September 10th. It's a Tuesday. We'll talk about it a little bit in the Kickstarter section, but I mean, we're going to talk about now. This is a new book for the Deadlands Weird West game. They've done a few other ones like this where they're talking about like the High Plains and I think they've done another one as well. Basically just try and give you more details for a certain area of the US in the Weird West Deadlands setting. So this one, as you can see, is about the Abominable Northwest. On top of that, there is some other stuff going on this Kickstarter, specifically a new adventure box set for Deadlands from Shane Hendley himself, which is called Carnage at the Cascades. So we're going to see some stuff for Idaho, Oregon, Washington, those states, as well as some other locations, new foes, new cryptids, and some other new Savage Tales to tell in your game. I am really curious about this particular book right here in the middle. It says Rise of the Black Circle. I just really like the art from what I can see in this picture. It looks really cool. If you haven't seen see if I can zoom in a little bit, make this a little bit bigger for you. You know what? It's probably an easier way to do this. Nope, maybe not. Oh man, the picture's not even in this art here. Hope that's not like a secret thing that's not supposed to be in here, or maybe it's a secret thing for those of you who are in the Kickstarter, or not the Kickstarter, in the newsletter. So I'm curious to know what that is. I don't see anything about it in the description here. But you can go over to the Kickstarter and sign up to be notified when it does go out. Like I said, it's supposed to be scheduled for September 10th based on a Facebook post I saw. So, yeah. If you use Fantasy Grounds, Maw of Oblivion for Deadlands Less Colony, which is the Deadlands product, specifically a Deadlands product that happens in space. It's like a space horror setting. You can get this now on Fantasy Grounds and Steam for the Maw of Oblivion campaign. And then there's also a sale on Fantasy Grounds for a bunch of Deadlands stuffs, the core rulebook, the Weird West Companion, the Hell in the High Plains, and Horror Headstone Hill. Those are all products that are currently on sale, 20% off at Fantasy Grounds. So if you're interested in that, if you use Fantasy Grounds for your games, you can go over there to check that out. On Drive-Thru RPG, there is a Cosmic Horror sale going on for some Savage Worlds products. I believe this is maybe not just a Savage Worlds thing, but maybe it is. I'm not sure. 25% off certain settings and books from Pinnacle, Goon role-playing game with the art types, creature cards, GM screens, and the Great Bolaire. I don't know how to say this. Bolaire Street Block Party, and then the Horror Companion and all the stuff comes with that. The action deck, the adventure deck. The adventure, Horror of the Huntley House, and Patient Zero, and some art types and the Horror Companion. I need to run some of these adventures because I am in desperate desire of playing some spooky games in October. So I'll probably run one of these. I'll run a couple. I feel like this October is just a good month to play role-playing games, especially Savage World role-playing games. Deadlands kind of fits the bill for a little bit of a horror theme. You have these horror things. You have the ETU, a whole bunch of good. I feel like there's a lot of good. I don't want to say horror like a crazy, creepy horror, but like a good, healthy horror kind of game. The next Savage Saturday Cinema Rights of the Spring Madness is now on sale over at the Pinnacle store. This is being authored by John Matthew. I almost said James. I don't know why. John Matthew DeFoge, JM, is what we usually call him. I just bought one of his other books yesterday. If you saw that on my Instagram, Facebook. But we're right now. But he's written some good other good things. Him and I've had some good conversations before. So go ahead and check out that. I don't have a link to this yet, so let me go ahead and just put this link in the chat, and we'll talk about that in a bit. There we go. And then this week on the Savage Universe, or I should say, is that this week? Yeah, this week. This week, Jan and Alb will be getting together with JM over at the Savage Universe. I think JM's still hosting the Savage Universe. And they will be talking about Swagtember and all the products that are going to be in Swagtember for 2024. I will also be going over everything in the Swagtember bundle next week on the 2nd. I think so. Is that the 2nd? 3rd. On the 3rd. So September 3rd, I'll have purchased the product, and I'll be going through all the products, and not like showing you everything, but like kind of talking about all the products that are in there and why I think they're cool. And hopefully I'll convince you to take a look yourself and purchase it. This is a great time for a bunch of swag people. If you don't know what swag is the Savage Worlds Adventurers Guild, and it's made up of a bunch of community creators who are publishing content, usually pretty well done content for Adventurers Guild type stuff. Think about kind of like the DM's Guild, but for Savage Worlds, where it's community content being published through Pinnacle, and we can enjoy that. So a bunch of the creators are putting stuff together in a bundle, and we'll be being able to kind of see all the cool stuff that's in there. Usually all the Swagtember stuff usually comes from like the past year, so stuff that's released this year or since the last Swagtember. And so I'm looking forward to seeing all that kind of stuff. I already have some ideas of what kind of stuff I expect to see, because there's been some really cool products that I've enjoyed seeing this year, but we'll see what actually happens. Bard Songs is now the official Chinese language translator for Savage Worlds. So if you speak Chinese, or if you want to play Savage Worlds in Chinese, there will be there's now an official company that's going to be doing the localization for Savage Worlds products for Chinese gamers, which is awesome. I don't know how many people we have here on Savage Goose who speak Chinese, but if you do, that's good news for you to get to play in Chinese. So that's really awesome to see, like, more languages being supported for Savage Worlds, which means that the product itself can go to more people. The more people that we can see it go to, the more gamers we're going to see, and more support we should be able to see from Pinnacle and from other people for more kind of products in Savage Worlds. So that's really exciting. Still shipping Necessary Evil 3. I'm still waiting for everything here, including this. I'm waiting for this too, and sort of. I'm waiting for the Kickstarter. I don't actually own any Kickstarter or any Deadlands stuff right now, because except for the PDFs, I am waiting for my Night Train Kickstarter to come in, which included the box set for Deadlands, The Weird West. So hopefully I'll be getting all that in soon. And by soon, I mean, I guess, after the anniversary celebration. So that'll be fun. All right. So going over to our slideshow here. Oh, a little too small again. Boop. Kickstarters. There's currently a Kickstarter for Deadlands Blood Drive as a audiobook. This ends August 29th. If you're interested in getting this, go check out the link. It should be a link down below in the Kickstarter section. This company, Audio RPG, has been doing a bunch of different audiobooks for Savage Worlds, and unfortunately, I haven't purchased any of them yet, but I keep planning on getting the audiobook for the Savage Worlds core rules, just so I can listen to the rules in the car, because I'm a nerd like that, and I want to listen to stuff and make sure I'm, playing the game right, gaming it right, telling you guys how I think the game could be played in a good way. So if you want to check out the Blood Drive Kickstarter, it's also usually a good way to get the PDF for relatively cheap on top of the audiobook. So I say go check those out as well. Coming in October is the Starbreaker Saints and Sinners Kickstarter. This is for a setting from Star Anvil Studios. They did Samuel Games. I think it's Star Anvil Studios. They did the Secret World RPG. They just finished a other Kickstarter for Forgetting the name of this Kickstarter already. Sorry, guys. But they're doing another setting for a kind of like a sci-fi setting. They are going to be doing a live stream with us. The current expectation is for October 2nd. If something changes, then maybe that date will change. But currently, we're expected to do a live stream with them on October 2nd about Starbreaker and going through that game. So join us then to talk about the game. And hopefully we can learn more about the setting and you can get an idea if this sounds like something you're interested in. Also coming soon is the Battlelords of the 23rd Century. They are doing a Kickstarter for a book called Charlie Foxtrot. We don't have an exact date yet for that, but we are looking forward to getting a date from them whenever that happens. And hopefully we can get them on the stream as well to talk about the new book and what that has to offer for all of you who play Savage Battlelords. Coming Tuesday, September 10th. Again, this is the Deadlands, the Abominable Northwest Kickstarter. So if you're interested in that, get on the waiting list to be notified so that you can know firsthand when that's happening so you can go to the Kickstarter and check it out. All right. So a couple other products I want to kind of call out. There was a couple new products this past week that were released on for Swag as part of the Adventurers Guild that I wanted to call out. The first one is the Sleuth Squad Critters. I hope everyone can see that. This is for the Sleuth Squad game. This is a game for basically doing like kind of like Scooby-Doo type stuff, where you play as teenagers and you usually have a pet of some sort or some sort of mascot, and you're solving crimes and mysteries. They purposely try to go for more of a lighthearted kind of gameplay, so they're not a gameplay where you're fighting the enemy, but you're kind of like maybe trapping them or trying to investigate clues and finding out who the bad guy is, all that kind of fun stuff. Keeping it more like that kind of Scooby-Doo feel, not the live action Scooby-Doo movies where they're actively fighting the monsters. So more like the normal TV show. But this new product, Savage Sleuth Squad Clue Critters, is for more kind of mascots for your games, which is a cooler product to add on to your current existing game. And it is pay what you want, so you can just kind of pay whatever you want and then buy it. The other one I wanted to call out was Westerberg, a Savage mini setting. Part of the reason I call this out is that the trade dress was done by Jan Jetmar, who does it works on the City Guard Chronicles stuff, and everything he does, I feel like, is usually really good. This also looks really cool. It's a setting that is, as they say, a love letter to the works of Bram Stoker's Dracula, Castlevania, and Underworld. I played a little bit of Castlevania. I've been meaning to watch the Underworld films. If that's a sin that I haven't watched them, I'm sorry. They are on my list of things to watch. But it looks like a fun little setting. Again, it's a mini setting. It's kind of based around a certain town, the city of Westerberg, and then all things go on there. It's only 15 pages. It's not super long, but it's also only $4. So if you're interested in this is down. Both the Sleuth Squad and this are down in the description below, where you can look into buying these if you sound like something you're interested in. All right. So moving on to our main topic, we're talking about power modifiers. I'm going to go ahead and remove my little thing here. I'm Goose. I'm the Savage Goose. Welcome to the channel. We're talking about modifiers, power modifiers, powers. I mean, just modifiers. I'm not sure why I said modifiers. Powers. We're talking about powers, power modifiers, and which powers we think are underrated, underappreciated. People don't take as often. One of the nice things about Savage Worlds and powers is the versatility powers have in Savage Worlds. You can trap them different ways. The same power could be done using flames, via water, via chains, via some sort of weird aura. Anything you can imagine these powers being, you can pretty much figure out a particular trapping for them and do it that way. So you can just trap it a different way. You also have power modifiers. You can take the same power and you can make it stronger. You make it weaker. You can make it the blast template bigger, smaller. You can make it affect multiple people. You can do it more quickly. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can modify the power to make it more be the thing that you want it to be. And one of the things I think all tabletop role-playing gamers like to do is to kind of break things. If you watch a lot of D&D 5e videos, especially like things like D&D shorts. He has a lot of videos about how to kind of do really kind of broken stuff between like edges and powers and magic items and all this kind of stuff to do crazy stuff. And I think that's a thing that we like to do as gamers often is like look at the stuff that we can breakable that seems too good or really powerful and just kind of use it to our advantage, which I think is part of the game and part of the fun that we have. Obviously, sometimes things can get a little bit too powerful, but that's not really what we're going for here. We're not like you can go for like things that are like clearly powerful, clearly strong, but some of the things that are not clearly strong, some of the things that are more niche or are really good in certain circumstances, or the things are just really good in general, and people don't really realize it. Sometimes we don't realize it because some power modifiers make them powerful. So maybe some powers are really, really powerful when you combine it with a certain power modifier. And some are also just good. You know, people know bolt, they know blast, they know burst. The three Bs. The fourth B, boost lower trait, smite, even puppet, things like that. People know are good. But what are some of the things that people don't know are good? Coming over to our comments here, I want to say hello to Peter Saloom. Who else we got in here? Todd DeWitt and Starlaw. Right. Thank you all for joining me. Looking forward to hearing what you all to think about when it comes to these powers. So first power, like I said, I did post this on the subreddit to ask people what they think are some of the most not overpowered powers, but powers I think people don't really think about as being strong powers. Powers that people don't often take. Maybe they should think about taking. Kind of looking through here. I want to see first what you guys have to say about powers. Let me see if anyone's mentioned anything yet. So Todd asks a good question. What do people think about Adaptable Caster in the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds? In D&D 3, this was a feat, energy substitution, and it changes the trappings. So what Adaptable Caster is it's a power modifier. It's a 1-point power modifier. And I should actually clarify what some other things before we talk about what this does. So when you take a power, I don't remember. I think it used to be it was on casting, not when you took it, the first time you cast it. But at some point, you have to set a trapping for it. So if you have bolt, you need to decide, is it a fire bolt, an ice bolt, a lightning bolt, a water bolt? Is it a chain that comes out of nowhere? Does all of a sudden there's an arrow flying from the heavens down on this person? Or conjure up something? Does your character conjure a bow and arrow and shoot an arrow and that's your bolt? There's a whole bunch of ways you can trap it and make it kind of look a certain way. Now, most of the time, trappings are just there for looks. They are just there to kind of give you a feeling of the power. But sometimes certain trappings do mean that you have a certain abilities. If a creature is weak to fire, well, you're going to want to use a fire bolt. If someone's weak to water, you're going to use a water bolt. There's going to be certain synergies that certain trappings have, and that's not necessarily a strength or weakness of the game. It's just that that's the way things work, and we're doing something narratively that just makes sense. By default, the adapter by default, you couldn't really change your trapping. If you wanted to have a firebolt and an ice bolt, you had to take the bolt power twice. You could also take, I think it was in the core rulebook, you could take an edge called Wizard, and that would let you spend a power point to change your trapping. So if you wanted to have a firebolt, but wait, you're fighting a fire elemental, and you want to shoot a bolt of water, you could have the Wizard edge, spend 1 power point, and you could change your firebolt into a water bolt and hit that fire elemental with a bolt of water. In Savage Pathfinder, there is a power modifier that's just innate to the game called Adaptable Caster, which says that you can spend 1 power point to, just by default, without having the edge, to change your trappings from one trapping to another trapping. And this, I think, that's some mixed reviews. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. We're playing a lot of Savage Pathfinder, and I feel like it's just a little bit too easy for characters to go and switch between things without much regard for that kind of thing. In the Fantasy Companion, they actually take the exact opposite approach, where they actually say explicitly to not use the Wizard Edge and just not allow it. And so if you want to take a Firebolt and an Ice Bolt, you just need to take new powers again to get your other version of Bolt that does what you want to do. So let's see here, just going through here. Todd says it's been argued that to me that's a bit OP. I haven't played enough power users, so I can't really say for sure. Yeah, and I'm not sure myself yet. I personally like the idea of sticking to your trappings because I feel like that's more. It feels more fun. Like this is who you are. This is the spell you have. I even thought about maybe making some sort of setting rule where you also have to declare the like maybe like increase the amount of powers you get, but you also when you take a power, you also decide which power modifiers you're applying to that, and that's just the static power modifiers you have to that particular version of that power, turning kind of the whole entire system of powers into a formula recipe book to create unique spells, right? So instead of it being like, okay, you can do whatever you want at any point in time, you can just say, okay, here's the power section. This becomes a forge to create the power, and then once you have that power, that's the power you have. In order to balance that, you'd have to definitely make it so that people start out with more powers. But I think it's something that unique that people could theoretically do. Peter says, I don't worry much about balance with side rolls much. I think that stuff can be avoided by having a group that believes in the spirit of the game. Yeah, I think it's definitely. I think there's just something about it's not just like a balance thing. Sometimes it's just about a narrative thing. Like I don't like it narratively. I think that it is important. I do want to balance things out as far as like that second idea I had, where if you're going to say, okay, if you want to do a mass version of empathy, well, actually, yeah, say a mass version of empathy and a single target empathy being two different powers, I think you need to make sure that you can have more powers than like 3 that most arcane backgrounds start out with. But I don't think I'm not worried about I'm super worried about the balance itself. Just the fact, I think it's more fun to say you can't do this unless you're you spend a lot of time studying it and you took it to the wizard edge. So I'm not a big fan of it in Savage Pathfinder. I don't care. I'm not against it enough to get rid of it. I kept it in. It's part of the game. It's fine. But meh, not the biggest fan. Looking through here. Guys, looking through, just going to go through this conversation. We'll get to some of the powers here in a second. Yeah, one of the cool things about powers is that these powers can be used for pretty much anything you want them to be. It can be for, as Matthew Sennett says, a wizard, a unicorn, a gadget master, and a shapeshifter. Like everything that you can think of can basically use powers. And powers is not limited to spells. We often kind of default to fantasy settings. In fact, what we're going to be doing today is going to be defaulting to fantasy, but you don't have to. Matthew Sennett says, why was the power edge not allowed? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. Since are we off course from what we were going to do? Yes, but that's fine. Let's see if I can find the section about the wizard edge. If I can find it. I think it might be in the edge section, but it also might be in the power section. Yeah, probably in the. So let me go ahead and find it real quick, and then I'll show you guys what their reasoning was for not allowing, or I'd say advising against using the wizard edge in fantasy. Let's see here. Ancestries, new hindrances, new edges. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Oh, here we go. Section on the wizard edge. So let me go ahead and present here. Share my screen. Let's share this window. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. I'll go ahead and kind of make this a little bit here. Nope, that's not what I wanted at all. Go ahead and fit. All right, hopefully you guys can see this. It says here, the Wizard Edge from the Savage Worlds core rulebook is not used in Advanced Companion. This is done to better reflect a greater focus on magic. Fantasy settings often feature multiple specialized arcane characters, and the ability to switch trappings at will dilutes the uniqueness of many of these specialists. Changing a trapping is essentially like knowing a new spell, changing a fiery blast to a cone of cold, for example, or smiting a blade with wrathful energy of a dark deity or holy light of her other aspect. This is typically used to take advantage of creatures' weakness, but may have situational or narrative uses as well. Since such flexibility is so powerful, it makes sense that changing trappings should require some investment, either through an advance or downtime. So they kind of take a opposite approach here when it comes to trappings than the Pathfinder core rulebook does. I think that's kind of what we're seeing there, and I think again they're kind of emphasizing this idea of being a specialist. You have these are your powers that you are specifically good at, and it feels more. There's something about the feeling that kind of gets portrayed with that I like a little bit better. I think that they're trying to portray in this book as well. So going through the rest of these comments here. Sorry, Matthew. I'm going to say C Nance. Let me know if that's right. And yeah, to be clear, yeah, the Wizard Edge is not in Savage World Pathfinder. It's just rolled into a specific, a very specific power modifier. That's like a universal power modifier that you can do with any power, where you can just change the trappings by spending another point. So it's like basically everyone's in Savage Pathfinder. Everyone has the Wizard Edge automatically. Yeah. Okay, cool. See Nance. Got it. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these before we get too deep into should you have trappings being able to be changed or not. Let's go ahead and talk about the main topic again, which is powers that people think are stronger than people give them credit for. Powers are underrated. Not underpowered, though. They're just underrated. So let me go ahead and pull up our powers here. I'm going to talk about power modifiers real quick. So I'm going to be defaulting to the Fantasy Companion because this has a lot of powers. I feel like that a lot of people kind of default to fantasy in a lot of their games. I'm not sure that's necessarily true in Savage Worlds because we have so many non-fantasy games. In fact, I'm trying to think like besides Lankmar and Savage Pathfinder, what non-fantasy games we have in Savage Worlds. Or sorry, what fantasy games we have in Savage Worlds. We have a lot of non-fantasy. We have Rifts, we have the Superheroes Companion, we have Deadlands, we have Howler. There's a whole bunch of non-fantasy settings, but I think we're going to focus on the fantasy one because a lot of people tend to think fantasy when they think tabletop role-playing games, which is fine. I like fantasy. I think many of us like fantasy. So the first one is armor piercing, and I should start real quick the reason why I want to go over these is that certain powers combined with certain modifiers are very strong. And I want to go over these to kind of emphasize why these are strong and like why, try to get us thinking about which powers combined with certain abilities could be really strong. Armor piercing, you can spend 1 to 3 power points to give increasing levels of AP2 to a power. So this really only affects powers that are specifically trying to do damage to enemies or to other players, other characters. But this basically just lets them get through armor, which can be very useful for things that have high armor, maybe a high toughness because of armor. So just being like, hey, I'm gonna spend 3 extra points. I'm gonna ignore 6 points of armor. And that was all his armor. Cool. Now that toughness 12 creature is now a toughness 6 creature. Much easier. There we go. To do damage to it. This one my players use a lot. Fatigue. You can spend 2 points, and the power can be attached to any power that causes the target to be causes damage or is resisted by the target. If the power does affect them, they suffer fatigue, but this fatigue cannot cause incapacitation. So it's not a wound, but you can say like, okay, +2 to this, and now you have a fatigue, which means that you have a -1 to all your rolls. Yes, it's not a wound, but now you have -1 to all your rolls. Can be a big deal in Savage Worlds. Glow Shroud, I don't see this one used, I feel like, enough. But this one basically says that Glow creates a soft blast template piece of light um, around the target. It subtracts 2 from their stealth and negates 1 point of illumination penalties. So if you're in the dark and you're able to, maybe your character has dark sight, but your other characters in their party don't, you can cast something on the creatures and then make them glow. So maybe you can cause maybe like some of the powers we are going to talk about later, like confusion, and say, hey, I'm going to cast confusion on all these guys. I'm also going to spend 1 more point to make the targets have 1 point of illumination penalties and make them start glowing. Uh, Todd sorry. Todd says Glow Shroud is basically Fairy Fire. Yeah, but this is a power modifier, not its own power. So it's something we should note there. Heavy weapon, +2. Certain things in Savage Worlds can only be hurt by heavy weapons, like certain large, big creatures. Vehicles can usually only be hurt by heavy weapons. So if you want your powers to be able to do damage to, say, a big boat, maybe you want to punch a hole through a boat with your blast power or your burst or your bolt power. There we go. You're going to want to add +2 points to make it into a heavy weapon so they can actually do damage to these heavy weapon things, these heavy armor things. Hinder Hurry. This affects the target. It makes them either slower or faster, depending on what you're trying to do. Again, this is something that you can just kind of like add on top of someone, a target that you're already targeting something else. Maybe you're going to bolt them, and you're also going to make them reduce their pace by 2, make them a little bit slower. So and it's kind of, there's some of the things that are in this list, I feel like kind of step on toes with some of the powers, but I think they do a good job making sure they don't step too much. Lingering damage. This one, I'm not really sure how well I feel about this, but the target is hit by fire, cold, acid, gnawing insects, whatever, trappings that continues to cause damage after the initial attack. On the victim's next turn, they suffer the power's base damage -1 die type. So, for example, Bolt does 2d6 by default, and then next turn it would do 2d4 damage instead. And if the base damage is already d4, it's d4 -2. So that's a pretty cool little ability to kind of make things like linger a little bit longer. If you want to say, like, I cast Bolt and I catch them on fire, and that they'll take damage again that next turn, equal to 2d4. The nice part for the GM is that doesn't always mean that character is going to and 2d4 isn't necessarily a lot of damage, but if you're going from a 2d8 power to a 2d6 power, that can be a decent amount of damage. All right, so moving on, we have range. Pretty simple. Just going to make it so that you can spend a point to increase your range. This does not increase the range of touch or cone or stream templates, but it does, if you have a power like Bolt, where it's just got a smarts or smart split ×2, or maybe you want to smite a weapon that's on the other side of the room, like, hey, I want to smite your weapon. There you go, your weapon smited. This next one, this is one of the ones I think is really strong and I like a lot. It's called Hasty, and if you spend these 2 extra power points, you can cast a power as a limited free action instead of an action. Now, the arcane skill roll is still subject to multi-action penalties and any other penalties. Like if you do run, you're going to take that -2. If you take 2 actions, you're going to get a -2 to all your actions, including your free actions. But I think this is a really cool way to kind of like be able to, without taking like the Mystic Powers option, to say you want to smite your sword and then attack the same turn, you can still limited action cast smite on your sword, limited free action cast smite on your sword, and then attack and not have a penalty. I never super cared for from the core rule books that if you wanted to go for that kind of, like, especially from the core rule books, that if you wanted to do that kind of thing, you basically had to multi-action penalty. You had to roll smite and then roll attack. This makes it so that you can just spend more power points to get the same effect. So that's that without having the multi-action penalty. So I think that's a lot of fun. So that's all the modifiers. I'm gonna take everything over here. Starlaw asks, can the teleport power be used for the trapping to teleport non-living items, such as teleporting a glove off someone's hand, or would this require creating a new power or modification? Well, let's take a look at the power, because I imagine that I think the teleport power is one that I think people just based on name think is not super strong, but I think it's actually a lot stronger than some people realize. I don't know if it's like underrated. I think it's probably properly rated, but I'm happy to take a look and talk about that. Oop, 6,400%. It's too much. All right, so teleport. Teleport says teleport allows a character to disappear and instantly reappear up to 12 inches away. Instant or double that with a raise. Opponents adjacent to a character who teleports away don't get a free attack. If casting teleport on willing subjects, the caster decides where they move to, not the targets. And should disappear. Sorry, I'm going to just range smarts. So one thing I don't like the wording here is I think what it should say is no. Let me look at this. So okay, yeah. So I think it should say teleport allows a character to target. Like I think you can target an ally and say, "Hey, I'm gonna move," you know. And I think that kind of gets explained here, but it should be like teleport does target. So teleport does target something, target someone. As far as it teleporting items, I don't know. I don't see. I'd say I'd probably treat items on a character more like teleport foes. I just wouldn't do any damage. Like I wouldn't let you like use it to do damage to them. But I think that theoretically you would just have to use the teleport foe option if you wanted to do an object that's controlled by someone else. And same with it'd be a willing subject for you to do something on your own, someone else of yours. Yeah. If I was a GM, based on what I'm trying to say is if I was a GM, I would allow it. Todd says, wouldn't that fall under telekinesis? Telekinesis, right next to it, says telekinesis ability to move objects or creatures, the arcane skill. I will say I think this is a little bit different because this is actually moving it. It's not just like it's teleport is saying like we're going to just pew it out of existence. Starlaw says so Starlaw, when it comes to this, if you want to add a range, this technically does not allow you to add a range because it says that the teleport foe has to be a range of touch, and you can't use the range modifier to increase touch to a range. So you would have to like touch the item to teleport it. If you wanted to do something like that, I think you can. It's up to you if you want how you want to do it because it's still your game, right? And in the end, this is your game. You do it the way you want. If you feel like it's fair to do that, and if you're the game master, that's up to you. If you're not the game master, then you can just work with the game master and decide, can I do this? Is this okay for me to do? I don't personally see a huge problem with it. But maybe I'm missing something that is kind of important. So I know. I think the one problem I would have is like if you're just teleporting that person's like item out of their hand, that's a pretty big deal. And so I think that could get a little bit crazy. But yep, I just want to teleport all your stuff off your person, and you don't get a say in that, and that just seems kind of not fun. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So some other ones. The one that I think I see people talk about a lot. My players at least never think about taking. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this little menu up here. Oop. Bookmarks. There we go. Is the elemental manipulation power. So I'll pull this up. Again, I don't really see my players talk about it a whole lot, but I see a lot of people online talk about it. The elemental manipulation power states that this power grants basic control over the 4 traditional elements: air, earth, fire, and water. Upon activation, the caster may choose one of the following effects. It can be an attack, which does 2d4 damage, 3d4 with a raise, which is very similar to Bolt. Bolt does Bolt does 2d6, 3d6 with a raise. You can also have a do more damage with the damage modifier. You can use it to move. The caster can move a cubic foot of air, earth, half that if it's stone, fire, or water, up to the caster's smarts in any direction as a limited action. Push. The elements buffet and move the target. The caster uses his activation roll in place of his strength for a push. So if you look at the push rolls, you can basically, it's like an opposed roll there. So you can use your casting ability to push instead of your strength ability. And then other special effects, basically as the GM decides is appropriate. And I do see why people like it. It is very it only costs 1 point. If it has a duration, it's 5 rounds. It's a very versatile power to do a lot of different things. And you can use it to, like I said, you can use it to push people off cliffs because it does have a range. You can basically push someone that is across the map. As long as they're within range of smarts from you, you can use this power to, from a distance, push a particular person off the map. Maybe you call up a giant hand out of dirt and you just use that hand to push them off. Maybe air comes down and pushes them off. Maybe you kind of blind them with fire and they freak out and it pushes them off the side of a cliff. You can move. Maybe you kind of use the move ability to move the fire itself from your campfire at a person, and maybe that'll do burning damage or something like that. It'll be up to your DM's discussion on what's going to be allowed. But I think there's a lot of versatility of this power that people do often overlook. Even outside of combat, there's a lot of ways to use this to disrupt things, and you can kind of use it like a cantrip. I think of it kind of like sort of like thaumaturgy, but not quite thaumaturgy. But that kind of like feeling of like this power is not. You can kind of do a lot of things with it, and I think you can use a lot of things with it as a cantrip too. Kind of looking through here things. Pierre says using teleport, you would need to touch the object to do it. Map as well for the touch attack. So we kind of talked about this. I talked about this on a live stream a while ago, where, or at least as far as the fantasy opinion is concerned, I think it's fantasy opinion says this, is that when it comes to a touch attack for a power, you are just using your spellcasting ability against the target's parry. So you're just using their parry instead of 4 for your target. So it's not a map because it's still just one action, but you are still doing a touch attack. Let's see here. The power also has some epic power modifiers, meaning you have to have an extra edge to be able to access these power modifiers. But this says give you additional power and even control the weather, which is pretty cool. Another one that I don't think people underestimated, but I think how do I say this? People took it a lot. This is I think a common power people take, but I don't think we realized how powerful it was. At least I didn't realize how powerful it was until a post I saw the other day. And that was the power Dispel. Dispel has a pretty obvious effects. It cancels out powers. It can dispel someone's ability to do something. And one of the things that, at least in the fantasy opinion, it has is a area effect. And someone pointed out that if someone has like a bunch of summoned creatures, they are technically they're not permanent. So like zombie, if you use the permanent ability in zombie, technically the spell does not work on those zombies. But it's because that's what the rules say here about permanent abilities. But you can use the area of effect to dispel, let's say someone summoned a bunch of elementals. Well, you can just dispel them. Just use an area effect. Now, they have to oppose roll. There's an opposed roll there. But that seems pretty powerful. It's right here. Full target by a touch attack. This is an action, so the casting must be part of a multi-action penalty attack is successful. That's just copy from Suede. Yeah, I know the core rules said something at one point along those lines. I believe the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds book and the Fantasy Companion both say that it's against the creature's it's a spell casting roll against the creature's power. That's kind of the way I think most people have been doing it. I used to do it the 2 action way, but since reading the other books, I think that makes more sense. Makes it easier. It's 1 roll versus 2 rolls. And I went back and forth on it for a while. I came around to the it's easier. And it's more fun. That's what we're going for. We went fast, we went furious, we went fun. Another one that someone brought up that actually did seem really powerful. I'm going to talk about a few here. By the way, if you please feel free to let me know in the comments which ones you feel might be stronger. Ones I didn't talk about, especially if there's a special combination that is important. Confusion. Confusion confounds all targets in the medium blast template, making them either distracted or vulnerable, or both with a raise. The same effect applies to all those affected. The same effect applies to all those affected. These states are removed at the end of the victim's next turn as usual. So one of the things people talked about for this one is that if you take this power as say a rogue, you can basically make it so that people are vulnerable very easily, and vulnerable is needed for the sneak attack. So if we look at sneak attack real quick, I don't know if I can make it real quick. Let's see. Yeah, sneak attack. There we go. Perfect. Let's go ahead. I wish this guy could just default this to medium width always. Sneak attack. +2 bonus from the assassin edge is replaced by D6. Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. I guess I'm looking for assassin then, aren't I? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong book. It's probably in the core rulebook, so apologies, guys. All right. Well, anyways, apparently, I believe it's one of the, if the creature's vulnerable, you can get to do more damage. So I think that's a pretty cool power. I think they said they took the power as a favored power. Again, I don't know what's in this book, but it might be in Pathfinder Savage Worlds. I'm not entirely sure. But using that to kind of confuse your enemy, and then getting that sneak attack on them for if you're using that kind of sneak attack type character. There's a whole bunch of more here. I'm trying to pull out the ones I think are specifically called out to me. One of them, I never looked at this power, and that was relieve. Until someone mentioned oh, hey, this is really good. I think part of the problem is that it's a lot different in the original print run of the core rulebook, which is what I have. In the errated versions, it's changed a lot. But the errated versions match what I have here in the Fantasy Companion, or at least closer. For 1 power point, it's a novice power. Lasts, it's instant. It sort of lasts 1 hour. When you cast it, you can either choose your recover or numb. So recover says the caster removes 1 condition, shaken, distracted, vulnerable, or 2 if you get a raise. So that seems good. You can you remove shaken, remove vulnerable. You have a character like a barbarian who's someone who's always wild attacking, and you just want to make you're not vulnerable anymore, and if you were shaken, you're not shaken anymore. So that's perfect. There's also, but they called out specifically the numb ability, which says it reduces the recipient's total penalties from wounds and fatigue by 1 with a success and 2 with a raise. An exhausted hero with 3 wounds, which would be a -5 total, we get a -4 with a raise and -3. -4 with a success and -3 with a raise. And this effect lasts for an hour. So that seems pretty good. Now, it still says it does capacitate you as usual, but it lets you basically ignore your penalties, or your other characters ignore their penalties, maybe for yourself, maybe someone else, and kind of help make sure that you don't just lose this fight right now. Now, the question I think that people do have, though, is why would you use this over, say, healing, right? So let's go ahead and pull healing up. Well, I do want to pull out these other modifiers here quick. 1, you can do multiple targets. 2, you have restoration. You can restore 1 die type from any sort of energy drain. And you can remove stunned, which stunned is a really awful, not it's bad mechanically, but it's a really bad condition to get. All right, so let's say we took the healing power. Why would we want to take that over healing? Well, to start, healing costs 3 power points. And so this takes a lot more time. And on top of that, you can only target, let's see here. Unless you get the epic modifier, you can only target one character. Also, healing does not affect fatigue, and it doesn't work also as a way to kind of remove status effects. So relief is a way to specifically to remove status effects. Here we go. Stats World's Pathfinder Rogue Class Edge has an additional D6 with a drop or vulnerable on sneak attack. That's perfect. And then Jams adds they rolled it in with numb, which makes it a bit more worth taking. Neither on their own felt worth compared to regular healing. Gotcha. So I guess in the original book, they were 2 separate powers and they've combined them to make it worth more, which I think is kind of like I was mentioning off. Like there's a question you want to say, well, why not just take healing? Well, it's a little more versatile. It doesn't cost many power points. It does things that healing does not do. So it's kind of like choose pick which option you think is going to be best for your party. If you're, yeah. So I'm gonna go back down to relief real quick. Oop, man, if I could type, that'd be great. But again, I think this one is pretty good if you have characters that are always while attacking and you just want to remove their vulnerability and maybe remove some fatigue, especially if characters like barbarians in Savage Pathfinder, where when they go into a rage, they become fatigued at the end of their rage, and they are always while attacking, which means they're always vulnerable. So you can actually make it so that they're not vulnerable to attacks if you're just kind of doing like more buffs, and it doesn't cost as many power points. Okay. Looking at the chat, does anyone else have any sort of powers they really want to talk about? So please leave a power if you think is interesting, you want to talk about more. I'm going to pull up. How many more do I want to pull? I'll put 2 more. Do want to kind of get this done before 10 o'clock. That's stuff we want to do. Don't make this too long. Someone brought up Sloth Speed as a power that they use against their players. So GMs pay attention to this one. That their players kind of I think they meant hated, like, oh, this was like rough to get through. But Sloth says Sloth halves the target's total movement rounded up. The raise movement is also an action. So you get a raise on that Sloth, and just a move that takes the whole action. That can be quite rough if you're facing enemies who are jumping in, they're hitting you, shaking you, jumping back out of range, because now that you're shaking, you can't attack them. So come in, hit, back up, and now just to move up to them again, you got to take an action. So that's pretty strong. With a raise, target automatically attempts to shake off the effects of Sloth at the end of each of his turns by making a spirit roll. So people have a good way to get that, get it off, but that's still pretty interesting. And then you can also target a area of effect by using the +2 or +3 power points. So that's pretty good. You can also get stronger, making the spirit roll have -2, so just 1 more power point. I would probably always do this. Be like, nope, if you want to get out of this, you need to make it a -2. Always. I'll spend the extra power point every time just to do that. And I'll probably spend 3 to make sure I get every member of the party required to make an action just to move. Matthew C. Nance says, what do you think of Beast Friend? I'll take a look at Beast Friend. I haven't never played. I will say overall, I am not a pets player. I don't like playing pets. I love playing pets in video games where the pet just does its own thing and pretty much kills stuff for me for free. So I play Borderlands. I always do the character that has a drone or has turrets or just this thing for me where I can just like put it out there and it fights stuff. And then I don't have to worry about it. And because that's the kind of goals, I don't have to worry about it. In Savage Worlds or in any tabletop role-playing game, usually I have to worry about it. It goes on my turn. I have to control it. And I actually don't like taking all that time to do my stuff because I feel incompetent when I do that. I'll mention I'm very aware that a lot of people don't like, oh, this guy's taking so long for his turn. Not that I think anyone would actually be complaining about my group, but I think that's just a general sentiment I see online a lot. But let's take a look at Beast Friend. Beast Friend says this spell allows an individual to speak with and guide the actions of nature's beasts. The cost is to cast equal to the sum of their size. Controlling 5 wolves, which are -1, costs 5 points, and controlling 5 a rhino, size 5, costs 5 points. Success means the creatures obey simple commands like a well-trained dog. They attack foes and endanger their lives for their master. Raise the role means the beasts are more obedient. They won't kill themselves, but overcome their natural fears to follow their orders. Cool. So what's the duration on this? 10 minutes. And if you spend 1 PowerPoint, you can increase the duration to 30. Yeah, I think this is a okay. So it's not like a permanent friend. It's just like a friend that you permanent companion. It's a companion that you get temporarily. That seems fine actually, because you're not like always controlling it. And I think like Pierre said, Beast Friend plus teleport puts a tiny spy inside any building, which is always fun. Yeah, just find a fly, cast Beast Friend on it, and be like, okay, go in there, and then you can use the Mind Rider ability to communicate and sense through it, so you can kind of like see what's going on inside a building. Like, get someone inside the intelligence room. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, I think a lot of the powers that people underestimate. One, I think that they are either it's more generalized, like they just hit a whole area, or they're very unique and they can be used outside combat as well. I think that's another problem is that a lot of players tend to focus, especially when they're coming from other games that are all about the combat encounters. They tend to focus all of their abilities on making sure they get bolt, burst, and blast. Make sure we get those 3, and then like, okay, cool, I got all the powers I need. And they don't think about like, hey, like let's maybe think about some other utility things that you can do. Your casters are extremely powerful in Savage Worlds. They can do a lot of things. They have a lot of options when it comes to powers to do cool new abilities. We should be taking advantage of that for sure. All right. Let's go through a few more, and then I am going to jet for the night. I'm really having fun talking to you guys. I'm glad that we're having a good time talking in the chat and discussing things. Matt says, also, what do you think of the shape change power, and how would you handle more minor shapeshifting? A book I bought said the trapping system and reflavoring other powers was enough for this. Yeah, let's take a look at shapeshifting. Now, I will ask, what do you mean by minor shapeshifting? So shape change. If you want to clarify that, I would love to hear it. I also would love to hear at some point the best. I think this might be a different topic for another day. The best powers that you all have seen in third-party products. Not my best. I don't mean like the strongest, because sometimes things can just be strong. Like, yep, that's just strong. But like well balanced, well flavored, without still allowing for people to retrap it and everything. So I'd love to hear that kind of what you've seen in other products outside of the companions, outside the core rulebook. We'll go with we'll allow some things from other things from Pinnacle, but I would love to hear specifically things from third party publishers and that kind of such. Shape change novice. It says the past. Okay, so you can change into things at novice for 3 power points from size -4 to -1, seasoned to size 0, veteran size 1 and 2. Perfect. Yeah, okay, that's something I had to make sure I was remembering what this does correctly. Cool. So the question is, what do I think of it? I think I like it. I think it's a good power. I like that it does kind of say like, look, things of this size, you're limited by your rank to which sizes you can do. Makes sense to me. Also, which high power points it costs. Again, makes sense to me. If you're going to turn into a dragon, which I think is a special thing you have to do. If you want to turn a dragon, you have to like, maybe it's in the Savage Pathfinder companion or Savage Pathfinder, where if you want to turn into a dragon, you have to like have a special epic power modifier. I don't see that in this one, but it makes sense that if you have to be like a legendary person with 15 power points to be able to turn a dragon. That just makes sense to me. So pretty cool. As far as sorry, just your question, how do you handle more minor shapeshifting? I would like to know what you mean by minor shapeshifting. Let's see here. As in instead of a power for turning your head into an eagle, you use one of the sight powers and how the trappings your head turns to eagle. Yeah. I think that's if you're gonna do like minor shapes. If you just want to like do, if you're gonna be a druid, right, and you're going to be like, I'm gonna use Farsight. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I think it's Farsight or Darksight even. You can just say like, yeah, the trapping is that my eyes turn into or maybe even better, maybe you say that the way that you trap Darksight is actually it's you get bat ears and you can start using echolocation to see things in the dark. That works. Now you're gonna be limited by the power itself. Like you can theoretically you could say, oh, see, I can see in the dark, even though maybe I'm blinded or whatever. So certain things might be outside of what your trapping may not necessarily work with like the narrative. So you do kind of think about that. Talk to your GM about, what does this mean for me if I was to do something differently? If I wanted to, if I was blinded by power while I wasn't using my eyes anyways, can I still do this thing? Talk to your GM about what he wants to do there. Yeah. Starla says, what size is Godzilla? The Tarask. Let's go and look at the Tarask is pretty large. Let's see here. Is Tarask even in this book? I think it's in the Savage Pathfinder book, but I don't know if it's in this book. Let's see here. Bird of Prey, Celestial Centaur. These ones are pretty purposely generic. So let's see here. We got Dragon. I'm pretty sure there's gotta be something. There's gotta be something at least similar to it. Tom makes a good joke of depending on the movies, he seems to change size a lot. That is accurate. Sometimes he's tall as ability, and sometimes he's like not quite that tall. Sometimes he's taller, and it's always unclear. Especially like when you put him next to like a certain boats. You're like, that boat, I think technically is like the size of this one building, but he's as tall as that building, but he seems bigger than that boat here. Yeah. Okay, I'm not finding the Tarask right now. And I'm sure this is not, what we're doing here isn't helping you guys pay attention. Let's see here. Nope, it's too far. Yeti, zombies, giant zombies, zombie warrior. Yeah. Don't you love it when you just go too far? Well, anyways, it's pretty big. I think it's within the size that you can do for legendary, but I could be wrong. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone talking. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Size 13, Gargantuan Tarask can reach up to 90 feet tall and weigh more than 30 tons. There you go. All right. Well, thank you all for talking with me. I know this wasn't exactly what I didn't go over everything as much as I wanted to. It wasn't as structured as I had intended. But my day kind of got a little screwed up. But it was great talking to everybody. I appreciate everyone in the chat talking. It's been great having people in the chat talking. Past couple of weeks, people have been doing a lot of fun stuff, like just some good to have people, and yeah, just fun having you guys talking and talking with one another, talking to me about what's going on, and just kind of having that kind of more of a friendly discussion. So hoping you all had fun tonight. I know I did. And now I'm going to get ready for bed, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Hope you all stay savage. And again, leave a comments down below, especially for you watching this on the video on demand. Two things. One, your powers you think are underpowered or underrated, I should say, underappreciated. And also the best powers you've seen from third-party products or just non-companion, non-core rulebook stuff. Again, not the strongest, just some of the best well-designed ones. Love to hear them. Cheers, everybody.